Hey guys, so here we have a little bit of a different wine of the week because we have not one, but two blind tasting wines. I literally have no idea what we have in our glass, so Chuck, how do we kind of want to go about this?
You don't have to guess the grape, the region, the soil, the winemaker, nothing. The vintage, nothing. I just want you to, again, work through your methodology so that the viewer can learn and perhaps develop their own methodology in search of what is good wine. Okay, that's all it is.
Okie dokie.
So let's start off with the glass on the left.
Glass on the left. So for me, I'm looking at this glass on the left, and I immediately notice it's not completely black or inky or purple. This would lean more towards the brick red, ruby red end of the spectrum, fading out to a paler rim with just the slightest little hint of almost like a burnt orange or rust kind of color to it, but not completely orange. Don't get me wrong there. And it looks like it's about medium, maybe medium plus viscosity. I can see my finger completely through it. I'm not getting too many stains on this glass either. But let's go ahead and take a smell because that's the more fun part.
So can I just clarify this a little bit? So, when you look at the color of a wine, in this case red wine, so there's red, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, the more purple there is hue to the red, then you expected more youthful or a certain kind of grapes that have more of the purpley color. And the more brick orange that you have to the color, it can represent age, it can represent certain grape varieties, etc. So, the site can start giving you. Let me ask you this then: would you expect this to be a heavy tannic red?
No.
Right. So that's the bottom line. Just because of the color, the lack of glycerin on the legs here, it's probably not Cabernet, Syrah, Malbec kind of wine.
If I was a betting woman, I would say that this is not a big purple Malbec.
Okay.
If I was a betting woman.
That's what sight can teach you or can clue you into.
Perfect. Now
Go ahead,
the
now
fun part, smelling.
You do smell.
I do smell. So for me, the aromatics lean more to the dried category, inclusive of both florals and like a dried cranberry, dried leaves, dried almost a faint hint of like a potpourri. It also comes with kind of like a clay, warm baking soil kind of texture or smell at least to it. I'm definitely getting the dried, when I say leaves, that includes the spices of more of like a bay leaf or something, a dried sage even, maybe dried thyme.
It's about time.
So the fruit condition just based off of the nose is going to be more dried for me. I don't think it's really overly jammy, and I don't think it's a very overly sweet type of fruit character. And just based off of the nose, I'm not seeing any blue fruit. So for me, like I said, dried cranberry, maybe a dried red and black currant, dried black cherries maybe. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the palate.
Okay.
Oh, that's silky. That's good. So I normally don't go to texture right away because I try to reevaluate all those flavors. But for me, this wine immediately was really silky on my palate. So I just want to make sure that I remember that, not for the fact of guessing the varietal, but just in terms of enjoyment. This wine is really smooth, and I mean that in a great way. But I am also confirming those same dried elements that I felt from the nose. The dried cranberry kind of speaks really loudly to me, as well as the dried baked earth and the dried leaves, including the bay leaf and sage.
So let me ask you this. Now, would you say this wine is dry, medium sweet, or sweet?
I would say this is dry.
Okay. Now, what about the body? For a red wine, is it full-bodied, medium full, medium light, light-bodied?
Medium to medium plus.
Okay. And how about the acid? Is it high, medium, low, low?
Medium plus. Yeah.
Okay. And then what about the tannins?
The tannins are silky, which I feel like there's not too many of them. It just creates There's not too much chewiness. It's not rustic tannins. If anything, they're just, I hate to go the medium plus route, but it'd be medium to medium plus smooth tannins.
Okay, long tannins.
Yeah, long tannins.
Okay, so
nice finish.
does this confirm whether this is a thick skin, black grape variety or not?
This ain't no Cabernet in my opinion,
Right.
but I've been fooled before, so maybe.
Right, so I'm not looking at thick skin grapes. I'm not looking at Cabernet, Malbec. I'm not looking at Syrah, grapes like that at all. Okay, and the other thing that I just want to add to your breakdown of the wine, it has a very savory component to it.
Savory, yep.
So it's not just cherries, raspberries, all these fruity smells. It's very savory, saddle leather, sandalwood kind of smells.
Maybe
You
even like a
mentioned the autumn
cedar.
leaves kind
Yeah,
of thing. So it's much more savory in character to me,
Yep,
as opposed to being fruit driven.
absolutely.
Okay, now let's look at wine number 2 now.
Sandalwood that really rings true to me on this first one.
Okay.
Wine number 2, just because I have the luxury of having both of these in my hand, I just like giving them a quick comparison. And right off the bat for me, I noticed that wine number 2, although maybe slightly more concentrated, it's similar in the fact that it's more in that ruby spectrum, with that paler brick red rim on the outer core, or sorry, the outer rim there. But it does have a little bit of a thicker center, but it's definitely in the red spectrum versus the purple spectrum for me.
Right, exactly.
On the nose. So for me, this one, it had a little bit more of the dried like potpourri or like a dried rose petal. This one, I'm still getting dried elements, but they're even more in that autumn leaf category. Even this one's savory, but this one is also has a high savoriness on the nose.
Is it higher in savoriness than the last wine?
I think right now, right off the nose, it's slightly more neutral, and it's actually intriguing me to go onto the palate a little bit more.
Okay.
I think this wine is savorier. I think this wine has a lot more of a, I don't like using the word salinity for this wine because we use that a lot and it implies like a certain lean edge. When I say salinity, this one is just like a Italian cooking spice almost salinity. And I'm not saying that I think this is from Italy, but I think that there's like a kind of savory cooking, like maybe Mediterranean influenced edge cooking spice or something going on here.
Okay. Now, thinking about that formula that I was asking you earlier with the previous wine, so is this wine dry, medium, medium sweet, or sweet in comparison to the first wine?
This one is dry as well.
Okay. What about the body? Is it more or less than the last wine?
A little bit more.
Okay. And what about the acid? More or less than the last wine?
I want to say it's like a little bit less than the last wine.
Okay. So it's a little more mellow?
A little bit more mellowed out.
But still, it's perky.
It's perky. It's still buoyant, but it's a hard question because it's really slicing hairs there. But
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
this one is a little bit less.
Okay, and how about the tannins? Is it more apparent or less apparent?
This one has a little bit more of a chewiness, but it's still not rustic like hard.
Yeah. Kelly, can you get the bottles on the bottom shelf?
I know. Now I'm so curious because they're really good and they have very similar characteristics and tones, but they're completely different
Bottom shelf.
when you actually have them drinking them.
So, Kelly, did you find it?
I only found one.
Yeah, that's it. So this is the same wine.
What?
Yeah. And the difference is, this is the Nyers. This is the one you talked about, Wine of the
Oh my
Week.
god, yeah.
Oh, sorry, but this is Roberts Road. And
Okay.
this is 2012.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so it's Pinot Noir. So the difference between the two is this one I poured when it was freshly opened. I just popped the cork and I poured in the glass.
Wow.
And then this one to the right is I poured it and I must have glugged it 20 times, back and forth, like this. Just back and forth like this. And just introducing oxygen. Just like when people say, I'm letting the wine breathe.
Uh-huh.
That's all I did. And look how different the wines are.
Wow, I literally just got proven wrong because I was like, nah, they're so different in their glasses. That's crazy.
So the point of the story is, for you at home, these decanters maybe cost $20 in the store. That's it. And for these kind of red wines that specifically are not filtered or they're not fined or they're closed in, they don't use that much sulfur, you want to, it's sleeping, so you want to wake it up. You want to slap it around, wake it up so that it really, begins to open up. And it really starts to show you what it wants to say.
All those other characteristics that I was going to say, I thought this was a lesson on, like a little bit more of a simple glug style for every day and something with like a little bit more added nuance and complexity. And I guess it's still kind of a lesson in that, but I thought that they were different wines. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, so for you at home use, it just takes the investment of a decanter, maybe 2. You can even buy the old Gallo or the old, the V-shaped ones and use that. You just want to give it air. You just keep going back and forth, and it's amazing, especially when the wines are young like this. It's amazing how they can open up even more. That's the lesson.
So Chuck, I know all our viewers at home right now are wondering, Chuck, when do you decant? Like, is there a certain age range? I know that we discussed doing it for older wines. Is it every wine you open? Is it just red wines? Is it white wines? Like, when do you usually decanter or think it's best?
I can't tell you that. Every wine is different. And when I smell it, I just know.
Okay.
I just know whether it needs air or not. It's just like winemakers. They know when to rack the barrels or not. Just from certain smells, or they feel it needs a little more oxygen to kind of elevate.
Okay.
So it's the same thing. I just felt that this wine, I chose this specific wine because you're familiar with the winery.
Yeah.
And you're familiar with the vineyard, and you're familiar with the winemaking. I just wanted, those are common traits.
For a science experiment, it's all
Yeah.
even, it's all neutral.
I just wanted to show you what aerating can do.
So I think the lesson here is maybe we all don't know exactly when and where to decant all the time, but maybe sometimes if you have a wine in your glass at home and you're like, I don't know, before you throw it out down the drain, why not just decant it and see what its potential is, right?
I mean, if you look at these 2 wines here, they smell and taste so different from each other.
Crazy.
And it's all it is air. That's all it is.
That's
and so I
awesome.
just wanted to plant that seed with you guys for home use. Just a couple decanters and just go back and forth like this. And it's amazing, especially if the wines are young, and especially if they're like 25 to 35 and up wines, that they just need time to open up. And sometimes it's age that allows them to open up, but sometimes it's air. When you swirl the glass, it coats the wine glass with wine, right? And then the alcohol starts evaporating. And so many of the things that you smell in a wine piggyback on the alcohol molecule. So you're creating a greater surface area. But by me glugging like this, I created even more releasing the alcohol and therefore more
That's
smells
why you
and
see
character.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what do you think? Good lesson?
That's an awesome lesson because I love both of these, and it shows 2 different times to enjoy 2 different styles from the same one wine.
The same bottle.
Same bottle.
That's crazy. So I hope you learned a thing or two, and it makes you think about something different to do at home in search of enjoying wines.
Surprise your friends.
Until next time, thank you for watching. Aloha.